Welcome back to the Faith, Family, and Football podcast with Dr. Ralph. In this last section or segment, we're going to do an overview of the book of Revelations. As we heard in the previous sections, that Dr. Ralph will be part of a project with Zondervan Publishers. Those of you who have the NIV Bible, it was published by Zondervan, and there's so many books, so much work that Zondervan has done, and in the forthcoming project called the Messianic Study Bible, Dr. Ralph is a part of that project, and he'll be doing commentary on the book of Revelations. He's going to write notes. Just under the Bible there'll be notes, and he'll write a few essays also that explain further. When the Bible is out sometime next year, make time to get one. It's very crucial for us to go back to the roots, to begin to understand our faith from its original context. It will help us appreciate why and what we do, appreciate why we need to walk in a certain way and a certain path. So thank you, Dr. Ralph, for joining us once again. As always, it's a pleasure for me and for our listeners. We learn so much from so much that you tell us and you teach us. So at this moment, we're going to look at an overview of the book of Revelations. So the overview, the way we've prepared it, it has two parts: the purpose of the book and the structure of the book. So I'll start with asking questions related to the purpose of the book. So Dr. Ralph, the book of Revelation, before I go into the purposes, together with many I know, we call this book the Book of Revelations.
Plural. Okay.
And then much earlier, you told me, no, it's not supposed to be Revelations, it's Revelation. Why is it important? Why are you emphasizing that?
Oh, great question. Yeah, and the plural form Revelations is not bad. It's just identifying the fact that the book of Revelation is full of revelations. There's many different directions, imagery, narratives, storylines, unfolding. So there's revelation in many different directions, and you could say there's different revelations that we see and hear and read within the book called The Revelation of Jesus Christ. And so revelation singular comes actually from the very first word in the book of Revelation. And in chapter 1, verse 1, we read Apocalypsis Jesu Christou in the Greek. And that means the apocalypse of Jesus the Christ, or the Christos, the Messiah. And the apocalypse or apocalypsis, in the Greek word, it means revelation, the unfolding, that kind of the peeling back the curtain to see what's behind the mysterious curtain, see into the heavenlies. So it's a revelation of what is invisible. And that's the essence of the word apocalypsis, because you have Jewish writings that are also, they don't use the word apocalypse to describe themselves, but they are apocalypses in that they are peeling back the curtain of mystery to what's invisible. So some Jewish apocalypses, one of them, the apocalypse of the luminaries, it shows you how does the wind and the clouds and the rain and lightning and the sun and moon and the rotations, how does that work? It peels it back and it shows you. So it's not eschatological in terms of future or that kind of thing. Yeah, it's just a revelation. It's an apocalypsis. But then there's some that peel back the mystery of the future and say this is what's going to happen in the future. Book of Daniel is one of those in chapter 7 to 12. And we have other ones, 4th Ezra, 2nd Baruch. But Revelation is itself called the Apocalypsis of Jesu Christou. And so that is the title, self-described title of this book, or at least the purpose of the book. And so typically when you talk about it, it's the book of Revelation, which has many revelations within it. So just if you keep the terminology clear, it's less confusing, for people in general. But I will say then that going back to your question of the purpose, what's the
Yes.
purpose of the revelation, it's actually in those first three words as well. So it's apocalypsis, or the revelation of Jesus the Christos. And so the word of can be interpreted two ways. Either it's saying this is the revelation of Jesus Christ. In other words, it's the things that Jesus is revealing. So it's Jesus's revelation of the things to come, which is part of what Revelation is describing. The other way to interpret the word of, in official grammatical terms, it's called a genitive form, is to say this is a revelation of Jesus himself. The book is revealing who Jesus is in his cosmic and divine nature to John, which he didn't fully understand until after he had these visions. Now all of a sudden he has a whole new revelation of who Jesus is. And that is so important for Revelation, for the readers of Revelation, because they are in the midst of southwest Turkey, Asia, Roman Asia.
Yeah.
And you had empire, which was proclaiming that Caesar is God, Caesar is all powerful, and Christians were becoming, on the fringes of society, sort of like nowadays more so, and in other countries totally so. And so they had to live under the threat of persecution or actual persecution. And so they needed a reason to live faithfully to Jesus. Well, see who Jesus is, the stakes of then falling away from Jesus are so much higher. Because if he's very God, well, you fall away from him, then your eternal destiny is at stake. And so Revelation is there to let the first century readers understand, actually hearers, they didn't read it. Somebody read it out loud and they heard it. The first century hearers to go, oh, now we see such a huge vision of Jesus. Well, we've got someone to proclaim even more powerfully now, and a way to live even more faithfully now in light of who he is, not just what he's showing us is to come. So if we encounter what he's showing us is to come, then it doesn't matter anymore, because we're committed to this divine Lamb of God, who is also the judge of all of humanity.
Beautiful. That's a lot of information there. That's so beautiful. I grew up understanding, and I know many other people like me grew up understanding that the book of Revelation is only interested in revealing the future, what will happen in the end of days. And there are many people that are scared or afraid of reading the book of Revelation because they're afraid of what is going to happen and whatnot. But now you're giving us a different picture to say part of the book of Revelation is revealing Jesus Christ himself. In one of the lectures that I did with you, you gave an impression that it's possible that the writer of the book of John could have written the book of John after having the revelation experience. Why would you say that?
And it's a controversial perspective, because most scholars would say that John was written after Revelation.
Yes.
I mean, sorry. Yeah.
Revelation is written after John.
Yeah. But I would suggest that logically, you look at the Gospels and the other synoptics, and soon opposite. I mean, basically they're one eye. They're all sort of seeing it through a similar perspective, who Jesus is. They don't really bring out the divine nature of Christ as explicitly as John does. So, I mean, John's prologue, in the beginning was the Word, Jesus, and the Word was with God, and the Word became God, and was God. Word was God, and became flesh, and Jesus. So where did John get this from? I mean, did he get it from Philo's logos concept, or from, Stoic logos concepts, or where did he get this connection of Jesus as God, and which is a key foundation for Trinitarian belief? Well, it makes logical sense that if he saw the revelation of Jesus before he wrote the Gospel of John, then that totally transforms his perspective on who Jesus was during his earthly ministry. And so now
Yes.
he's going to all of a sudden go, oh, now that makes sense why this and this and this. That
Yeah.
was him revealing more of his divine nature. And so John, instead of just recounting miracles, he calls them signs. They're
Yes.
signposts telling us
Mm.
they're signifying something more about Jesus than just what the miracle. He's not just a miracle worker. This signifies who he is, not just some
What
supernatural
he
ability he has. And so for
Mm.
John, and he's got the I am statements, 7 I am statements in there,
Yeah.
hearkening back to the Hebrew word Yahweh, I am who I
Mhm.
am. And
Mm.
so there's so many different little indicators that he puts into his gospel that's reinforcing this amazing vision of Jesus that he's had. And I mean, in my mind, it makes a lot of sense that, well, could he have seen Revelation before? And some scholars actually suggest that Revelation was written just around the time of Nero, soon after his assassination, and
Mhm.
in 68 CE. And then but the majority say it's written more in the 90s CE. But anyway, if it's written before the gospel, it also explains the fact that the book of Revelation doesn't have very good Greek grammar, while the Gospel of John is beautiful grammar. And so if he saw Revelation and wrote it down in the late 60s or early 70s, whatever, he's got 20 years to learn his Greek better before he writes the Gospel of John, and it explains this more smooth, polished Greek as a result. So anyway, it's a minority view, but I think not an impossible view to suggest that.
It makes so much sense to many, even to me, I think, because the book of John is an outlier when it comes to the Gospels. It just presents a totally different Jesus. And maybe it presents for us a more fulfilled Jesus. Even by fulfilled, I mean the more revealed, the more
Yeah.
Jesus that really makes divine sense, I must say.
Mhm. Mhm.
Even when we pick from the story of Jesus breaking bread, the Eucharist, the book of John 6 gives us also a deeper, a more divine explanation to that. So the book of John gives us that. So it just makes sense that before John wrote the book of John, he must have had some serious encounters that the other writers of the Synoptic Gospels did not have, because he probably had something that just changed the picture of Jesus that the others had. Because I think John as well experienced the same Jesus that the three Synoptic Gospels talked about, but somewhat he wrote about a different Jesus, which was so beautiful. So as we conclude, you say that the book of Revelations does not just reveal the future; it also reveals the person of Christ. Could you give us a bit of a structure of the book of Revelation? How is it structured? How can we engage it in a more meaningful way?
Sure. Yeah, I would love to do that. And just before I move to that, though, I just want to make mention, most scholars don't acknowledge that John the Apostle wrote the book of Revelation. They do acknowledge he wrote the epistles of John and the Gospel of John. And that's partly why many suggest Revelation's written late, because they don't believe that he's the apostle who's writing it. But if you accept it's apostles writing it, then it's much easier to suggest, the reverse order, Revelation first, Gospel second. Yep.
Beautiful.
And I'll get to the
Yeah.
structure after we start another video section.